Zoom in. You know what? Hey yo. So welcome. Need is that very am I insane? Welcome to what I hope is the first of many, you know? I really asked myself what I would like my content to look like. And I wanted to start all of this with Agatha All Along. But then I got busy, and then I wanted to do the Creature Commandos, and then I got busy. And from there, I felt like procrastination. December, I'm in South Africa, y'all. December. And so it's January now. And as I take in the fucking heat, I also take in the fact that I really think it's time. I think I'm ready to share my opinions, popular and unpopular, with the masses of the little people in the screen. And I also think people around me are tired of me spazzing on and on and on about shit that they're not interested in. So now I'm on camera. Now, this video will start with a beautiful quote by my girls Flo. As they said, there's a reason I walk like this, side to side, with a sway in my hip. Now, they were talking about nighttime activities. Sorry, I couldn't help it. But they were talking about nighttime activities. That is not what we're talking about. We are talking about the heel. Now, as we enter the new James Gunn run DCU, I've really been appreciative of the way that women have been a really big focal point in narration of the stories that we're telling, and how important that the women's perspectives have taken in terms of, empathy and motivation drives. They've really allowed women to be like well-rounded, in a sense of, just because she's pretty doesn't mean she needs to be, the good person. She doesn't need to be the empathy. This halo effect on the concept of women has really been like dismantled. And we've been getting a bigger sense of, what women mean to a greater story. And, you know, as a woman who was a little girl who was really into, sci-fi, more superhero, more action, I I saw what a lack of good representation of women can do for a movie, and how it goes on in terms of how it ages. Transformers. I'm looking at you. But I think I think the DCU has really, I think we're calling the DCU, oh, James Gunn's universe, as I'll say through this video. They have really allowed women to be well rounded in terms of just who they are, what they want, what they need, their motivations, their traumas as well. The traumas don't need to always be this, you know, s- sometimes it's not a sub story. Sometimes it feels like a villain origin story. And I think it's okay to allow them to be that. But a big portion of that has also been how women have been dressed. Listen, y'all, it hasn't always been great. We all remember when Margot Robbie put on those itty bitty tights, those itty bitty shorts for the Suicide Squad, with with her shoes, the heels. They had really. I think I won't say that's the lowest point, but damn, damn. But it's instances like that have really motivated this video. And this video is about the impact of a heel. The impact of a heel on a female character, and what it means for her story, what it means for the presentation of this character. Heels are very important, but also not everybody wears heels. Not everybody finds them important, and not everybody incorporates them into their wardrobe. I mean, I own two pairs. One that are too high, to be honest. But I love them. You know, you buy a thing because you love the thing, but also a really practical pair of heels. And that's because that's who I am as a person. I'm very stuck on my Converse. And as I thought back to the history of the DC uh women in terms of adaptations, the use of their heels have always been very strange to me. They've always been very fan service, and I mean it in that like type of fan service. Always been for the male gaze. Always been for the, if she's got long legs, put her in high heels. But then, and one of those instances to me, and a part one of just the breakdown of the use of heels for women is Lois Lane in Zack Snyder's not Justice League, but Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. When Man of Steel came out, it was maybe 2013. We weren't really in the deep darks. I think the Avengers had come out a few The Avengers was about to come out or had just come out. And so that Marvel craze had been a very big thing. But for the DC universe, the concept of Superman and Batman were really known in the cartoon like forms, in their animated forms, and taken in mostly like that. And so when Man of Steel came out, it was really a stepping stone for what would be the James Gunn universe now, what people like, how people would share what they loved about it. And for me, one thing that I really did focus on was the relationship between Superman and Lois. It's the one thing that I always knew was important. Superman had his Lois, and Clark had his Lois. It's just how it had always been established. But so we get the movie, beautiful. Henry Daddy Cavill as Superman, 10 out of 10 casting. Then we get Miss Amy Adams as Lois Lane. Gosh, whoever cast her, I think saw great potential, but I don't know if they really were looking for Lois in Amy Adams. I think they were looking for somebody who would somebody who could act against Henry, and somebody who could hold the strength while also being quite soft. She's quite soft in this movie. She's, as much as she's strong in her decisions, she's very soft in her presentation of self. She's very soft in her tone of speaking and the way she asserts herself. She's straight to the point, but she's not very authoritative in it. And then I was doing research for this very video, and then I get this picture. This iconic picture. I don't know if it was the official promotion, but Henry Cavill stood strong as Superman, and Amy Adams stood tall as Lois Lane. And the thing that just catches my attention instantly is the fact that she's in a pair of So Kates. Yes, So Kates, the most uncomfortable shoe known to womankind. So Kates are so uncomfortable. People quite literally break in the shoe because of just the pure discomfort. It's quite a I don't even want to use the word luxury for it. I want to use it as eye catching. I think it's an item of allure, especially on a woman. And so seeing her in this very thin pair of heels surprised me. It made me ask, what were they thinking when they put her in these shoes? When they decided Lois Lane would be in a pair of So Kate in her day to day? Is that really the type of reporting that crisis journalist and war journalist is that what she's doing? And it really stood out to me as something that felt like it had been dressed to the actress. These shoes had really been dressed to the actress. And I thought that this was only a promotional video problem until you watch the movie. She's an increasingly high, thin platform, and I don't mean platform to the heel, I mean platform to the sole, so that you can balance just the height of the heel. Always. And two scenes that make clear of this is the scene where she's with Superman and she's with Superman when she's investigating him at the Department of Defense, if I'm not wrong. When there is in between like a fight and the action sequence that breaks in between all of that, a scene after that, he's flying her to the ground, to land her safely. And I can't help but notice that she's in these intensely high heels. These, and it's hidden by very well tailored pants, and they're like long, but they don't excuse and they don't hide the fact that for those women who know, she's in easy a 4-5 inch heel. And it's jarring to consider that this is how they had considered her character to have dressed in moments like this, in moments where the true intensity of her job was clear. You wouldn't expect an FBI agent, undercover or not, to be wearing a pair of really high heels when they know that the situation that they're in has been a FBI agent side. You wouldn't expect a reporter like of her caliber to know that she's going to enter a space where danger is like very possible. The possibility of an attack are very high, especially considering the person she's sitting across, and she wears this impractical of a shoe. And just for character, it is so impractical for Lois Lane to be in this level of a shoe. It really disoriented me as a female watcher. And this trend only continues through the different movies. Batman versus Superman carries the same Lois Lane and heel problems. She's always in heels. When she is pushed off of the ledge by Lex Luthor, tweaking out Jesse. I know. I liked the adaptation. I liked yours. It was new, but I liked it. Anyway, when she is dropped from the building, she falls, and she's caught by her man. We love it. We love to see it. He really swoops up and saves her. And then I can't help but notice, both out of envy and impracticality, this heel that she is wearing. She's wearing these boots, high heel boots, increasingly impractical. When she is in the abandoned space where Batman and Superman are fighting, and she has to dive into the water in order to get the kryptonite like spear. She is in boot heels, these heels, when it is pouring down on her way to Superman's memorial. She's in a pair of heels. There is this constant need to place her in heels. And it made me feel like the director was looking at the actors against each other and the grand picture of it, and less about what these characters are at their core. And it was very strange to feel like I'd been nitpicking over this one thing, especially about these heels. But the heels, it was so impractical. And it was in the recent watchings of The Penguin with Christina Miliani's Sofia Falcone, or Sofia Gigante. Her use of heels is spectacular. It is okay. So in in the in the greater universe of The Penguin, we see women being able to carry these really strong um positions. I think Selena Kyle was really amazing, and it really grew on. She grew on me in terms of a new iteration. So when I was watching The Penguin, Sophia is released from Arkham. And when you think of Arkham, you think of it in its darkest. You need to also remember the people that are being held around Arkham. So she is currently, what we later know, is a princess sent to a insane asylum. And the concept of how she dresses as she is the princess of the Falcons is very much so that she wears very pump type heels. They're very tea time. How she dresses is very reminiscent of how um a tea time dress would look, a peplum style dress, in terms of its tulle and its body. Her dress sense was very, very soft. It was very innocent. It applied more to who she was, trusting her father. When she is released though, when she is released though, she shocks us all. She starts donning striking outfits. First, I wish this video was about the coats, because I mean, the furs. She takes so many furs from her mother's closet that really embody her as this mafia queen, as the, successor of just this big dynasty and this big mafia family. But the most important use of closet and of style that she really embodies in terms of building herself up as somebody outside of who she was pre Arkham is her use of her heels. And I think two places that really, gave me a lot of joy when it came to seeing how she had used her heels was in the scene with the gun pointed at Eve's door. Is her name Eve? I will research that. But when she's pointing the gun, um, you see her first, you see her shoes. She's wearing, I think they're Prada. She's wearing these Prada pumps, and they're very high and very thick sole and very thick heel. The shoes are, first of all, an elevation of her height, but they really present themselves as a bit of armor. She is not outwardly, she is intimidating through the concept of the story that have built by why she was in Arkham. But when you see her, it's very reasonable to go, she's tiny, and without the gun in her hand, you are intimidated by her energy, but by her stature, not very much. So the use of these heels really does elevate her, really does give her a sense of, armor. And another scene that had really given, great show of how she uses these shoes, and I'll stick to the same style of shoe just to give example, is in, I think, one of the few last episodes, the last episode, when she has Oswald and his mother kidnapped at the jazz club. And as she's sitting across from Oswald, she's in this little black dress. We love to see one. And she has on these red bottom, chunky pump heels. They are almost Mary Jane like. She wears a very Mary Jane like shoe. She really does enjoy this type of prep girl shoe. But in this scene, the shoe is such an extension of just the anger, of the intention. They are such an intimidating force. She does not even need to be holding a gun. It feels very much weaponized. And to be able to use this aspect, to be able to use a shoe to weaponize like a woman, to weaponize a character when she pulls this very psychological way of torture instead, it was it was amazing. It really gave us, first of all, this this stark image of who we now know as Sofia Gigante. It did not feel like a Falcone moment. It felt like a Gigante moment. It felt like a moment that she had built for herself, in herself. The way she had dressed throughout, her release, and throughout the show, whether she had been donning the furs when she had removed them to show the scars that she had, had, the heels was still this big, really integral part of how she had been dressed. And I just I want to give great props to just the Penguins crew and the Penguins like stuff in terms of the dressing, because Oswald, for there we talk about prosthetics, but for Christina Miliani as Sophia, we need to really talk about these outfits. We need to talk about the use of a heel, the use of how femininity is so much of an intimidating force when used right. It's very rare that we see her in a pencil heel, and it's also very rare that we see her in flats. She doesn't do any flats in this in this show. She grows and takes up space with this heel, and it was such an amazing, like, integral part of who Sophia was. And I think when considering how integral a shoe is to how the presentation of a character is given to a greater audience, the presentation of a shoe in terms of a superhero costume. And you need to remember that the first two women that I spoke about, they are not superheroes. They do not wear these outfits or these shoes as a sense of true, armor. It's not part of a greater structure of a costume or of, and so I just had to speak about the beautiful choice of Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman wearing not platforms, wearing a wedge. Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman wears a wedge as a greater part of the structure of her boot. So the Wonder Woman costume has always been, in debate as one of those costumes that were quite risque, considering it stops here, then she has her bracelets, then she has the boot. And without that boot, you really take in the scarcity of just this outfit, depending on the iteration. But I think Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, first of all, it had really allowed her to be just that. It allowed her to be woman. We took Diana in as not only this, higher descendant, but she was really a pinnacle for women being able to stand tall in their stance of being a hero and what it meant. It did not mean we had to be a male counterpart, and we didn't need to be associated with a male counterpart, or these female superheroes could stand, how do I say this, could stand as a single standing movie. I mean, Wonder Woman was the release of a female focused superhero movie, and it broke the fucking box office. It made so much money, and it really allowed DC, after Aquaman and I think after Man of Steel, Wonder Woman really, it was quite heartwarming, and it gave me so much joy to watch her be acknowledged as a part of this trilogy, as a part of the trio of Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. She has always been part of that. And this movie allowed her to be that. But movie aside, the use of Gal Gadot, oh, the use of the heel and the use of the boot by Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins in the greater, presentation of Wonder Woman was so amazing. First of all, the heel was not too high. Everybody could see that this is not a struggle or a troublesome heel to wear through battle, through walking, through going through the journey that she goes through when she walks through the battlefield. You can see this shoe walking through it and giving her the support and the structure in the fighting that she does. You can see this heel acting as a big stance of brace when Wonder Woman is being hit with an impact. You can see her balancing on it. You can see it being this cushion. You can see it being a part of an armor this shoe is a part of armor. This heel is it is as it is as crucial as a handle to the sword, you know? And when she takes this shoe and she allows it not only to have its moments to shine, it is very clear that there are moments where this shoe shines in when she's walking through the battlefield, when she is fighting at the end of the movie against Ares and his guards. It well it really shows how she's able to use this shoe in battle, in fighting. You see her move with it and you can imagine her wearing this shoe. And I think my favorite iteration of it has to be the use of um it in the 84 golden suit. 84 was a disappointment. There's very like little that can be said to what was good about that movie. But the greatest part of that movie for me anyway was the golden suit. And the golden suit did not disappoint in being able to transfer this shoe over in costume design. This shoe done so much good because it acted it, the extension of it in the golden armor and the use of it in the golden armor did not feel like something that we were looking at with, oh, they really added that. It was striking. It you could there's this concept that I've always enjoyed, especially in the history of Transformers movies, the way that, metal pieces sync together in a greater structure of an exterior. And I mean, the first two Transformers movies done great work in showing that when it came to their transformations. And I think what the Golden Suit was able to do was show us that in a more established, like, human built suit, because you could see the shoe being put on and locked in to the greater structure of the outfits, to the greater structure of, it going up her leg, the shin and her knees, the back of her knees, how it bound around her thighs, and even when it came to the unisons with the rest of the outfit, I'd always loved the concept of dressing Wonder Woman in more clothing, not because of some morality or some modesty like crusade, but simply because I think giving a woman a full set of armor does so much work when you are trying does so much work for her and does so much good for her when she's trying to be a warrior. Being a warrior is very important in the grand scheme of who Diana is as, Wonder Woman. And so I think this golden suit and the use of these heels, the use of the heel in the original as well, were the greatest part of 84 and Patty Jenkins. I don't know. I feel like the consistency of the Wonder Woman adaptation between directors really did disrupt what I thought I loved about her. But the shoe, the shoe I will always love, and the heel I will always love. And I hope as James Gunn's universe continues, we can find we've seen appreciation for just how a female presents herself and a woman presents herself in terms of outwards dressing. And I hope this concept of heels, it does ring true in how we go about it. Like right now, the new Superman is about to come out, and I wonder how this Lois Lane is very different because I find her very, I'm not going to say realistic. I'm going to say accurate in the comic book aesthetic and concept of self. Even how she was dressed, I was like, this is how I see Lois Lane. I see her very relaxed. I see her very comfortable. I see her very ready to charge out of the office and go to wherever she is needed to go. And so even when we think about the bride when it came to Creature Commandos wears heels throughout the entirety of that show. And so it will be very, very interesting to see how they go about um adapting just this heel and how she really embodies herself in the shoe. She wears it very strong. She wears it almost like stomp and break the concrete under me. And I really hope that they don't lose that. I really hope that they continue that. And so yeah, this was the greater feeling about the use of heels in the DC universe and for female characters. And this is the first of hopefully many videos, but I'm glad. And whatever you guys have to say, what you feel about my opinion and my comments, I'd like to know what you feel. I'd like to know if I'm the only woman who is watching these movies and watching these shows with this constant focus on how they're presenting themselves and how they're dressed, or am I just making a 30-minute video being just one of those girls who are judging. Ooh, don't cancel me before I start. But yeah, this was fun. Talking is exhausting. I will get used to it. And thank you.